The Dore Lectures on Mental Science. By Thomas Troward. Lecture 4. The Life of the Spirit. Part 1 of 2. The three preceding lectures have touched upon certain fundamental truths in a definite order. First, the nature of the originating spirit itself, next the generic relation of the individual to this all-embracing spirit, and lastly the way to specialize this relation so as to obtain greater results from it than spontaneously arise by its merely generic action, and we have found that this can only be done through a new order of thought. This sequence is logical because it implies a power, an individual who understands the power, and a method of applying the power deduced from understanding its nature. These are general principles without realizing which it is impossible to proceed further, but assuming that the reader has grasped their significance, we may now go on to consider their application in greater detail. Now this application must be a personal one, for it is only through the individual that the higher specialization of the power can take place, but at the same time this must not lead us to suppose that the individual, himself, brings the creative force into being. To suppose this is inversion, and we cannot impress upon ourselves too deeply that the relation of the individual to the divine spirit is that of a distributor, and not that of the original creator. If this is steadily borne in mind, the way will become clear, otherwise we shall be led into confusion. What, then, is the power which we are to distribute? It is the originating spirit itself. We are sure that it is this because the new order of thought always begins at the beginning of any series which it contemplates bringing into manifestation, and it is based upon the fact that the origin of everything is spirit. It is in this that its creative power resides, hence the person who is in the true new order of thought assumes as an axiomatic fact that what he has to distribute, or differentiate into manifestation is nothing else than the originating spirit. This being the case, it is evident that the purpose of the distribution must be the more perfect expression of the originating spirit as that which it is in itself, and what it is in itself is emphatically life. What is seeking for expression, then, is the perfect livingness of the spirit, and this expression is to be found, through ourselves, by means of our renewed mode of thought. Let us see, then, how our new order of thought, with regard to the principle of life, is likely to operate in our old order of thought. We have always associated life with the physical body. Life has been for us the supreme physical fact. Now, however, we know that life is much more than this, but, as the greater includes the less, it includes physical life as one mode of its manifestation. The true order does not require us to deny the reality of physical life or to call it an illusion. On the contrary, it sees in physical life the completion of a great creative series, but it assigns it the proper place in that series, which is what the old mode of thought did not. When we realize the truth about the creative process, we see that the originating life is not physical, its livingness consists in thought and feeling. By this inner movement it throws out vehicles through which to function, and these become living forms because of the inner principle which is sustaining them, so that the life with which we are primarily concerned in the new order is the life of thought and feeling in ourselves as the vehicle, or distributing medium, of the life of the spirit. Then, if we have grasped the idea of the spirit as the great forming power, as stated in the last lecture, we shall seek in it the fountainhead of form as well as of power, and as a logical deduction from this we shall look to it to give form to our thoughts and feelings. If the principle is once recognized, the sequence is obvious. The form taken by our outward conditions, whether of body or circumstance, depends on the form taken by our thoughts and feelings, and our thoughts and feelings will take form from that source from which we allow them to receive suggestion. Accordingly, if we allow them to accept their fundamental suggestions from the relative and limited, they will assume a corresponding form and transmit them to our external environment, thus repeating the old order of limitation in a ceaselessly recurring round. Now our object is to get out of this circle of limitation, and the only way to do so is to get our thoughts and feelings molded into new forms, continually advancing to greater and greater perfection. To meet this requirement, therefore, there must be a forming power greater than that of our own unaided conceptions, and this is to be found in our realization of the Spirit as the supreme beauty, or wisdom, molding our thoughts and feelings into shapes harmoniously adjusted to the fullest expression, in and through us, of the livingness which Spirit is in itself. Now this is nothing more than transferring to the innermost plane of origination, a principle with which all readers who are in the thought may be presumed to be quite familiar, the principle of receptiveness. We all know what is meant by a receptive mental attitude when applied to healing or telepathy, and does it not logically follow that the same principle may be applied to the receiving of life itself from the Supreme Source? What is wanted, therefore, is to place ourselves in a receptive mental attitude towards the universal spirit with the intention of receiving its forming influence into our mental substance. Lecture 4. The Life of the Spirit. End of Part 1 of 2. Need help understanding Troward's teachings? The Thomas Troward lectures contain very deep and powerful information, but to get the most out of them, require repeated listening and in-depth study. Troward had only one personal student, Genevieve Behrend, and her book Your Invisible Power distills the essence of Troward's lectures in a concise and easy-to-understand format. For many, this is a much preferred way to learn Troward's teachings. Click the link below this video to visit yourinvisiblepower.us and learn more about Genevieve Behrend's recently updated book.
Click the link in the description below for a chance to win 10 classic best-selling Law of Attraction books